Safety first, eat second. That is the motto for Freaky Friday. That is going to be all about Sonny Styles, I think. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. This is the Podcast Daily. Heard from the Ohio State defense, Jim Knowles, and a handful of veterans that are coming back. And the person that was talked about most was the same one we've been talking about all offseason, and he wasn't even available.
But why wasn't he available?
Because he's not a guy who decided to come back. He had no choice. He had to come back. Well, I guess he could have transferred, but he couldn't go to the NFL.
Well, he's back.
Yeah, he's back.
And Jim Knowles, Bill, explained his philosophy about moving Sonny Styles, and it was interesting to hear. I understand it completely, but what did you learn from that?
Yeah, Jim Knowles described it as kind of like a multi-year design to get Sonny Styles to this point. He said when Sonny was recruited, a lot of people said, like, he's going to be a linebacker, and I don't think Jim Knowles disagreed with that, but he thought it'd be beneficial for Sonny to start his career at safety, see more of the field, move around a little more, have some different responsibility, then ultimately move down into the box, which is what Sonny is doing now. I actually didn't know this, same kind of path that Malcolm Rodriguez at Oklahoma State, who's a starting linebacker for the Detroit Lions now, I think, took. Malcolm Rodriguez is about this tall, and Sonny Styles is 6'4", 230, so they're not exactly.
They don't have the same physical profile.
They're not exactly the same, but it's an interesting path that I think actually does make sense. And we know that, like, Sonny did play down some while he was playing safety, but Jim Knowles also explained that it's pretty different starting from deep and then dropping into the box after the snap as opposed to just starting in the box. Things happen quicker, so Sonny's been adjusting to that, but Jim Knowles said he thought that Sonny was adjusting well. Cody Simon said he thought Sonny was adjusting well, and everyone seems pretty excited by the move.
Sonny played safety in high school, and the reason guys like Sonny always play safety in high school is because you just put your best player back there and let him wreak havoc. But that's because in high school, getting from the third level of the defense to the first level, it doesn't matter how long it takes a kid like Sonny because the running back isn't already 6 yards through the hole at that point. I thought the most interesting thing talking to Jim Knowles was that it seems pretty clear that there's an intent for Ohio State to use guys like Sonny in a lot more aggressive ways this year.
What's the word?
Funk.
They
want to see some funk out of the defense. And
well, you can't fake the funk.
You can fake the funk, but you shouldn't.
Not on a nasty dunk.
Fair point. But Sonny, we talked about it all year last year. Like he just seemed more comfortable at the line of scrimmage or closer to the line of scrimmage. And so now it's a learning process. Like now, how do you make sure that he's elevated his game to the point where he's not just moving linebacker, but excelling at linebacker? So that's what these next 6 weeks are for. And he's super cerebral and a really hardworking kid. I don't have any doubt that he's going to find a way to make that happen. But then you have CJ Hicks on the other side, and Jim Knowles talked at length about, well, there's going to be times when those guys are out there all together, and that is exciting.
Yeah, I also like that Jim Knowles is pretty direct about it. It's like, well, he had to try hard to stay lean enough to play safety, and now he's allowed to go eat and fill himself out physically. Cody Simon's like, yeah, we joked about it because he was already heavier than half the guys in the linebacker room. So that part physically, we've talked about that. I enjoyed the confirmation on that. And Jim Knowles also talked about, having Caleb Downs in and the depth at safety and Lathan Ransom back also allowed them to be in a position where there's more need for Sonny Styles to play linebacker. But again, it comes back to what Berm's talking about, what you've asked about and been wondering, Bill. It's like, well, what does that actually look like if you are in a world where Sonny, CJ Hicks, and Cody Simon are all out on the field? And who does that impact? Is it going to be the defensive line or is it going to be the second?
I think it could be both. It could impact the front or the back of the defense depending on what the matchup is. I think that's the beauty of everything they have on hand here is they can be a little more purposeful, I think, about how they play those matchups. And Denzel Burke was talking a little bit about that too. He's like, we got tweaks, we got adjustments, we got everything you can think of. We're going to throw a lot of different stuff at offenses this year and try to, I think, dictate terms more perhaps than they did last year. They were really good last year, right? They among the best scoring defenses in the country, did not give up a whole lot of yards. I think they want to, make more splash plays, get more turnovers, play behind the line of scrimmage a little more, confuse offenses more than they did last year. And I think that would be a byproduct of Sonny's versatility, of CJ Hicks's versatility, of this Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom. You can move all these guys around. And even he was talking about playing Jack and JT, some perhaps outside linebacker and some 5-down defensive line looks, which was music to my ears because I've long thought the next step for this defense is to get a little more multiple up front rather than just play the 4-down static all the time. And we'll see when fall rolls around, right? Ultimately, if they do that, Jim Knowles said, like, it's an idea I have in my head. I'd like to see it in practice at some point this spring, just to use all the talent that's on hand at your disposal in some more creative and fun and funky kind of ways, which, that's what this time of year should be for, I think. It doesn't mean you carry it forward to the season, but it almost feels like a waste to not use these 15 practices to experiment a little bit.
I mean, you said confuse defenses accidentally, but like you may have to confuse this defense to get these guys where you want them by August. There's a lot that's being put on the plate. I was asking Cody Simon about CJ Hicks, like, what are you seeing? Is that light coming on? And he said, we're all getting a lot thrown at us right now that's new. And even Cody Simon, who's played a lot of football for Ohio State, said, I'm behind right now. So there's a lot of things that Jim Knowles and the defense are putting in that are a byproduct of year 3 in the system, and saying, okay, we've gotten here, now we can do the sprinkles of this and that. And I think that is something that Buckeyes fans should be very excited about. Jim Knowles was joking with us about how he wants to, in the spring game, just throw the jack out there the whole time and just to get people to be like,
why?
This is what they're going to do, and then not do it.
Maybe it wasn't a joke.
I felt like a joke. Either way, but there's an opportunity for the Ohio State defense to look a whole lot different from not just game to game, but series to series this year, when they have just not had that in the past. The athletic profile of this defense is significantly higher than it was when Jim Knowles got here. I mean, the first year he got here, there was Zach Harrison drafted, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're looking ahead to this next season, and you're talking maybe 9 or 10 guys that are starting defensive players being drafted. Like, it is a significantly different defense.
Yeah, and the one who can't be is the guy who would be drafted before all of them.
It's wild to me because it's such a luxury issue to have this much athleticism, high-end NFL caliber athleticism, positional versatility, scheme flexibility from your defensive coordinator. And like, that's just the part of me that's like, when you say there's a package for somebody, I just think, I've said it like 10 times, Baron Browning, and like not getting them on the field as much as they need to. Yeah. I think maybe it's an irrational fear that I have, but I just have like a negative connotation of like, we're going to package this stuff together. It's like, well, then if you're reliant on how an offense lines up or how they play, and then that means that you see Sonny for 15 snaps in a game, I just can't get my mind around that part. It's such a good problem to have that Ohio State is too talented and too much in the playbook. But
what if it's seeing CJ Hicks 15 snaps a game and Sonny 45?
But it could also be seeing, like, depending on the matchup, right? It could be 15 plays of whatever the Sonny package looks like against that team, and then 30 snaps of Sonny at will linebacker and 30 snaps of CJ at will linebacker. Like, I know that the best defenses in the country, like, don't play the same 11 guys on every snap.
Sure.
So, like, I don't like Ohio State. I think sometimes falls a little too much into that, and some years the depth is better than others. I understand that, but this year it seems like it could be pretty good. So I don't know. It's not a fear for me. I get what you're saying, because it's the time of year where we like get really excited about all these different things, and then it gets to the fall. It's like, oh, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And like there's a balance there between like knowing that you can do those things, and then doing them. But and I think for us too, like an understanding that like it's not going to be every single play, but hopefully they do find that happy medium of embracing some of it and maybe getting a little more creative than they have been previously.
And it's not even like you go through the first 4 weeks of the regular season and everyone gets to play and you don't have to worry about the snap counts. To me, it's like thinking about the 3 times that it really matters.
Yeah.
And do you break away from here's the 11 and it's going to be out there every single time, which I don't generally have a problem with. I think your best players need to be on the field. It's when it's hard to tell if there's a difference in the production level between Sonny Styles or CJ Hicks at linebacker, or is Sonny Styles or Jordan Hancock in nickel, and like that's the art of coaching, I suppose. Like figuring out what the right balance is in the games that matter most, while potentially, I think one of the things that Berm wanted to see last season was like defense dictating to an offense what your personnel was going to have to be, and not having to just react to that. And I don't think of Jim Knowles as a conservative coach by any stretch of the imagination, but like I do feel like there have been times that opponents have been able to tell Ohio State who was going to be on the field.
I just don't like when the defensive changes come across as like a gadget. You know, if it's part of the defense and you have a package that is going to include Sonny, CJ, and Gabe on the field, or Gabe Powers, or or Cody Simon on the field at the same time, then use it and make sure people have to prepare for it. If you do something out there, it's just like, we're going to do this one time, and you know exactly what it means when it happens, then it means nothing. If JT Tuimoloau was sincerely going to stand up and play some outside linebacker in a 5-down front, like that is awesome. I mean, we can go back to 2018 and 2019 and think about Chase Young in the Predator role, how that just mangled offenses. Now, obviously, some of that's because it was Chase Young, and he's a different.
Well, mostly just Wisconsin, and then almost like never again.
Never again.
But if you do, but that's okay. It's one game. It was a big game, a huge game. If you're preparing, and you don't need to do this against Akron, right? But if you have these things that you can put in place, and you know it's going to be a game changer against Penn State or against Michigan, then let's actually work toward it and do it.
Yeah.
It's not. I think it's a similar conversation to what I think Chip Kelly brings to the offense. Right? Like one of the things that Chip is known for is having something new every week, opponent specific and new every week, that I think keeps teams on their heels a little bit. And I think Ohio State's defense could do the same thing and probably do it more effectively because there's more. I think there's more talent on the defensive side and there's more experience on the defensive side. Just a matter of, I guess, everyone getting on the same page and being willing to do it, because they could just play it straight up with their 4 down and their normal 11 and still be pretty damn good, right? But
Get freaky, bring the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all of them collectively are on the same page when it comes to being the number one defense without question in the country and winning a national championship. We can go directly to the spokesman, I think, of the entire team, Denzel Burke. No excuses, here to win a national championship, be the number one defense in the country. That's certainly, I think, the expectation for Ohio State fans and people outside the Woody, but it's no different inside here.
I don't know that a player's ever said that before. Like, like obviously it's Ohio State. Like those are the expectations. I don't know that I've heard someone express it that emphatically, the way that Denzel Burke did. We have to win the Natty. Is that what he said?
Yeah.
We have to win the Natty. There's no excuses.
There's no excuses.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
True.
He's
Fact
right.
check.
No, he's right. They've loaded up. They've loaded up for it. He's absolutely right. And I actually think it's probably better for him to like say that out loud now than like pretend it's not the case, right? For everybody else to kind of get on board and roll with it.
He put that on his shoulders too.
Yeah.
It's not like spreading it around. He said that he wanted to be the number one corner in the 2025 NFL draft, that he wants to win the Jim Thorpe Award. He
wants to be a 95 overall in the
he
NCAA
thinks
video
that
game.
he should.
He
thinks that he should be, which I give him credit. He knocked himself down at least 4 points there from the max. But I just could not love listening to Denzel Burke more. And if that's what Ohio State should have from its leaders. Like, I don't really want to talk about goals or individual stuff is private. Like, put it out there. Like, I love the confidence of Denzel Burke, and I think that does translate across the veterans that we talked to that were coming back with JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Cody Simon and Tyleik Williams. Like, none of them are shirking away from that or like making excuses for not having beat Michigan during their careers or not getting back to Indianapolis for a Big Ten championship. Like, there's a lot of ownership there that I think is really impressive.
To a man, they all had like an individual thing that they're like, I came back because I need to get better. JT said I need to get twitchier and Ty Hamilton said he needed to improve as a pass rusher. Like, they all had a thing that they kind of circled individually. Tyleik Williams talked about just being on the field more, and I don't know how he could have been more than
as far as he wanted to be healthy,
his stamina and staying more like dominant longer.
Offense?
I asked him because he joked about his stamina on the NCAA. He said overall 90, stamina 60. So I asked him. I said,
it's great self-awareness.
And he said he thinks his stamina is probably a little higher than that. But they all have things they want to improve on. But it is a matter of just this. This is about like putting a banner up. There's nothing else that is motivating this. All these guys could be getting ready for the NFL draft next month. But they're not. They're sitting here getting ready to go on spring break, and it.
In a lot of ways, that's better.
I like the vibe, man. Like, I think it's really important to have that sort of pressure. You come to Ohio State, and everyone talks about it, and sounds cliche. We're like, oh, that's what happens. You come to Ohio State. You come here for this. Like this, you come here for this pressure, and there is a lot of outside undue pressure that gets put on these kids when they arrive here, and maybe they don't play as a freshman or sophomore, like a CJ Hicks, for example. But like the pressure of winning a championship and hitting your goals that Ohio State has failed the last 3 years, like that has to drive you. If that's not driving you, you're in the wrong spot. For show.
Faux show. When you guys were joking with Jim Knowles about the jack, Bill, you asked him, more serious questions about it. Like, are we done talking about it? What is it going to happen? It doesn't, like, I walked up for the end of the answer and I was like, I think he just pulled the plug so that we can't ever talk about the jack again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he wants to mix things up a little bit, but I also think that he believes that maybe the jack position as he used it at Oklahoma State might not be the best course of action given the talent that's on hand with this particular roster, which I think is why the 5 down stuff is also in the back of his mind too. Like, I think he understands, or maybe not, of course he understands, but I think he wants to get this defense to a point where it's a little more multiple on the front end. It's been pretty multiple on the back end. But he wants to do it the right way, I think in the way that meshes with the personnel, the way that meshes with Larry Johnson too, right? Like, if you're playing the jack stuff, you're going to take one of Larry's guys off the field, and we've had conversations about that. If you're going to do 5 down, keep the 4 defensive linemen on the field. Keep 5 defensive linemen on the field. Maybe make Larry even happier about having more of the rushmen on the field, right? So I think it's just like a blending of ideas that to get them to the right plan to utilize the talent. And maybe it turns out that the jack's not the right thing for it this particular year. I still think long-term Jim Knowles would like to do it. They certainly seem to still be recruiting to it, but he said last year he felt like it wasn't the right fit. Maybe this year it's not the right fit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe next year it will be.
I feel like it's a guy, if you take an option coach, right, from Georgia Tech and you put him in a new system, like in his mind, he's always been thinking or playing from a system of, I have a disadvantage, I need to try to equalize. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the option does, right? It forces a different reaction. That's what the jack was for him for a lot of time at Duke and Oklahoma State. And now you have Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and JT Tuimoloau, and you can do things that you've never dreamt of doing as a defensive coordinator, and you don't have to do anything, like I said, gadgety to do that. Like you have the jack on the field when Jordan Hancock's out there. He's an excellent blitzer, and he can cover wide receivers. Like, you have a better option than you ever had before. So
Sonny can do it.
Sonny can do it. Like, you have things now that you have parts that you can play with you never had. So I think it pains him to say, like, maybe this isn't right for this team. But he said, I'm going to do what's right for this team. And so in the back of his mind, I think he's always thinking, well, one day we'll have less talent and I can use that defense again.
So that's what I told him afterwards, is like, you just said you have the personnel to do whatever you want.
So
how could the jack not be part of it? That's the part that it doesn't matter.
He did say he would like to do some of it this spring. They didn't do any of it last spring,
right.
Which, like, famously.
So why can't JT Tuimoloau outplay the jack?
I mean, he can't, and also, like, it's not, the jack can mean like 6 different things,
right?
Too.
So that's the problem.
Yeah, so I don't.
It's an amorphous blob.
I think
Firm still hasn't got his wish to put the jack floating symbol over their head.
I think it might be
werewolf.
Safer and better for everyone to just, like, say multiple, and see where that takes them.
Dynamic, funky.
Didn't we decide to call it the werewolf?
The werewolf. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I remember talking about a werewolf at some point.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was for that or if we were just.
It was definitely
that's when you said it's because it wasn't real.
Ah, right.
Wait, they're real.
Werewolves are not real.
Oh boy, we're breaking
dire wolves used to be real, but they're not anymore.
Oh, Game of Thrones wasn't a documentary?
Incorrect. It was.
Oh, well, now I'm even more confused.
That segment was made up.
You got a full Freaky Friday finish here on a funky, defense-heavy episode to wrap up the first week of spring camp. We had a great time in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and the Buckeyes did too, I think, based on the smiles. And they're also ready to go get on spring break. So there won't be any practice coverage next week, but the podcast daily will still be running every single day. And we hope you join us for it as we break down more of what we learned from the Buckeyes in week 1 and get ready for week 2 whenever it arrives. That's Bill Landis. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. Have a great weekend. We'll see you later.